Hey everybody, Frank Kern here, and today we're going to talk to best-selling author, multiple bestsellers, world-famous, world-renowned, Tony Robbins, about his new book, Money, Master the Game, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom.
You remembered all that. I'm very impressed.
Well, you know,
a big book to remember.
It is a lot to remember. It's a big book. This is no lightweight book here. This isn't like a passive, non-committal approach to taking control
of this baby.
of the. It really is. You know, on the way over here, I was thinking that culturally, money has gone from being like a taboo subject that you never talk about. To really a national or global obsession, which is now openly flaunted and obsessed over. But it doesn't seem like the average person, or really anyone, has more control over the area of finance. In fact, it seems like we might have even gone backwards. So while the topic is now globally accepted and obsessed over, our education about it, our skill, our mastery of it is waning, if anything. What's going on here?
Well, part of that is complexity. I mean, the world you grew up in, I grew up in, or our parents at least grew up in, was very different, right? What did you do for a living? You got to college, you got your 4-year degree, you went to work for a great company, you worked your tail off and got really successful. And at the end, you had all this money, and you had this thing called a pension, a lifetime income. You never had to think about money again for as long as you lived. But, you know, that world died a couple decades ago. And so now we live in a world where everything is more complex. While you're in the middle of running your business and taking care of your children and being a great husband or wife and trying to do something in your community and have a good time, you're supposed to be, you know, investment expert simultaneously. And we all have heard over and over the phrase we've heard so often that, you know, when a person with experience meets a person with money, the person with experience ends up with the money, right?
Exactly.
And
right.
so that has happened on steroids because, you know, the technology of finance has grown geometrically. CDOs and CDMs and MLPs and WTF, you know, like, you know,
I don't know what any of those are.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And so what I really wanted to do is, this really started for me back in 2008 when, I think you know my background. I grew up in a pretty tough environment financially and emotionally. And I associated so much pain in my family life to, you know, 4 different fathers, and nobody had money. We didn't have money for food at Thanksgiving. And what changed my life was somebody coming and feeding my family then. And I've fed 42 million people since then, paying it forward. And I'm going to feed this year 55 million people myself. I just set a goal and I'm going to hit it this year. But to go from not being able to feed myself to being able to do that's been quite a trip. And in 2008, what fired me up was seeing so much suffering. Fortunately, I wasn't suffering, but I had the guy that cuts my hair, you know, I tell people my barber and my billionaire clients, because it's really true. Both extremes were suffering during that time. And everybody said the system was going to change. You know, everybody knows the system, you know, it's rigged, and you read about how it's rigged, and you know that you go to click on, you know, your E-Trade, let's say, and it takes you half a second to do that, 500 milliseconds. And today these high frequency traders are out there, and literally in 1.5 milliseconds to 5 milliseconds, they'll buy and trade hundreds of times knowing what's going to happen to make money off you and everybody else. As soon as they know what you're going to buy it for, they just make money like clockwork. So the system we know is rigged, and all this stuff was supposed to change. And in 2010, nothing had changed. And I watched a documentary that, I don't know if you've seen, but it's called Inside Job. Did you happen to see it?
I haven't seen it, no.
It's Matt Damon did the voiceover for it, won every kind of award. At the end of this thing, they literally systematically show you how the entire world economy was virtually blown up by a small number of people. And then the punishment we gave them was we put them in charge of the recovery, and we took everybody else's money and made them whole. And at the end of this thing, I was so angry. I think you have 1 or 2 reactions. You're either depressed because you go, there's nothing I can do, I'm angry. And I thought, there's no solution here. And I thought, you know what? You know, the solution, there needs to be answers. And I thought, you know what? I have a privilege. Most people don't know it, but I've been coaching a man named Paul Tudor Jones, who's one of the top 10 financial traders on earth. For now, this will be my 21st year with him. He pays me 7 figures a year to coach him. So he's not looking for inspiration. I figure out what makes him successful. And for 21 straight years here, we've made money every single year. And I'm talking about, I was with him back when the stock market crashed in 2000, with him in the experience of 9/11, with him in the experience of the subprime crisis. Every single year made money. Nobody else in his class talks like that. So it's his skill, and I've been there side by side learning it and using my skills to help. And I thought, I've got access to the best financial people that exist on earth, those unicorns that make money no matter what happens. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go figure out what they do. So I set out to interview 50 of the most brilliant financial minds in the world, from self-made billionaires to Nobel Prize guys. And I said, I'm going to simplify it, and I'm going to make this game winnable. And I really can say I've done that. Put it in this 7 simple step process that anybody can do if they're starting late in life, or if they don't have a lot of money, or if they're very successful and they want to take it to a whole nother level. I made this little course in mastery, basically, is what this book is for people.
It seems like today, especially, when it comes to money and finance, that people just devour information constantly.
Yes.
I mean, I was just up in your office. You've got 5 screens going on simultaneously, which is amazing, by the way. And there's different points of view coming across. And it used to be that information was this coveted thing of value. And then it became commoditized as we could just view every bit of information in the world on our telephone. And then it became, I think, really in terms of its relativity to finance, it became a bit of a hindrance because now there's so much coming on that you don't really know where to go. And I think what's really lacking now is insight. Don't give the manual, tell us the button to push. And it sounds like almost what you've created is a tactical, modern version, at least from the background essence of it, of Think and Grow Rich. But this is like Act and Grow Rich. Whereas you are now the modern day Napoleon Hill, where you've gotten to sit with these modern day Carnegies and just extract unbelievable amounts of insight from them. What would you say some of the biggest eye-opening moments were during that process?
Well, first of all, I want to comment on what you just said, because you said a lot, and it's really true. The biggest challenge today is not information. We are drowning in information. We're starving for wisdom. And what I wanted to do is, you can go on the internet and you can get every point of view, and any person who's anybody will get up there and pound on their chest and attack each other and say, you're wrong, you're wrong. So I'm not interested in talking heads. Even on television, you have these financial entertainers that tell you, save your money and put in this mutual fund, this mythical mutual fund where you make 12% every year, compounded for 20 years. It doesn't even exist. It hasn't for decades. So I wanted to get to the truth. And I figured if you're going to master the game, you got to learn from the masters. And since I could get access to them, and I did it through relationship, and I did it through door opening, I did it by delivering for them, it just evolved. And what did I learn? My God, they all have different approaches, but I'll tell you a few things that they all have in common. And one of them sounds overly simplistic, but most people miss it. Their number one thing that every single one in common, and by the way, but here's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, I'm sitting with Carl Icahn, who most people have heard of, multi-billionaire with $27 billion. And I'm sitting down with him, and he made $2 billion that day on investment he started 18 months earlier called Netflix, right? He filed a tweet.
$2 billion.
Yes. He sent out a tweet that jumped Apple's stock value by $19 billion literally in an hour. Maybe it's $17 billion. I'm probably off by 1 or 2. But I mean, numbers that are just extraordinary. This is the level of influence this guy has. And by the way, all these interviews with these people are supposed to be 45 minutes, and you know me well enough to know I go deep. I prepare for 15 hours. And I go to Carl, and Carl's a very passionate guy, and he says, I don't want a video crew. Last minute. He just throws them all out. I'm like, I said, well, at least audio record. No, I don't, because you got 15 minutes. Right?
No pressure at all.
So that turns into 3 hours, thank God, and we become friends, and it opens doors. So every one of these guys have a different approach. I met Ray Dalio, who most investors have never heard of. High-level investors all know who he is. Everybody knows what a hedge fund is. Big hedge fund, good size one, $15 billion. Ray Dalio is the largest hedge fund in the world, $160 billion. For you to talk to Ray 10 years ago, you had to have a $5 billion net worth, and you had to give him $100 million as your first investment, or you couldn't get in the game. Today, forget it. He doesn't care how much money you have. He invests for governments, China. He invests for the largest pension funds. So I got to sit with him for 3 hours. And I got him to share with me things he's never shared with anybody in the world, all the way down to an actual formula that has been right 85 to 86% of the time, whether you check it 30 years, 40 years, 75 years back. Think about how much up and down the market. Last 10 years, there's been 50% up and 50% downs back in 2000, 2008.
Past 10 months.
The most that he's done, the most he's ever lost was 3.9% in all those years. And that was 2008 when it was down 50% for everybody else. His average loss was 1.9%. So I always say to people, what if you could go to Vegas and you could know you're going to win 85% of the time, and when you lost, you're going to lose a maximum of 3.9% over 75 years. How much would you invest? How much would you go bet? How often would you do it 24 hours a day?
So you met with 50 of the most powerful, most influential, most successful investors, masters of money alive on the planet, arguably maybe even in history of this actual act of investing. What are the commonalities? Because surely there has to be some kind of a thread that ties them all.
There is. And it's interesting. Some of it seems very basic because the difference between information and execution is everything, right? So a lot of people know what to do, but they don't do what they know. These guys are incredible at execution. I'll give you a couple. First one, the most simplest one, they don't lose money. They're obsessed with not losing money.
That sounds a lot easier said than done.
It is a lot easier said than done, but their obsession is, if you know Warren Buffett has a rule everybody's probably heard. It says, rule number 1 of investing, don't lose money. Rule number 2, see rule number 1, right? Because when you lose in a 2008, 50% of your money, you have to make 100% to get even. And the time it takes to do that is sizable. So these guys are obsessed. I'm not going to lose. They have all these strategies that I teach in the book about how to make sure you don't lose money, which doesn't sound sexy, but it's the difference between having a life where you're totally financially free and can do whatever you want at some stage of your life, or thinking about having to work at 50 or 60 or 70 years old in a place you don't want to be, right? A second one that's more interesting, is most investors, most people, A, are not investors. They never get in the game, right? They think investing's too complex, and it sounds like it, and it is if you let the words get in the way. If you know any field like law or medicine, they all have words that keep you as an outsider, and that's part of what they get paid for, right? But what I try to do is show people it's not that complex. If I show you what these words mean, if you hear the word iatrogenic in the medical field, I told you the Journal of Medical Association says that the 3rd biggest cause of death in the United States last year was iatrogenic causes. You go, what the hell is that, son?
I would immediately become paranoid and convinced that I have it somehow. I'm pretty sure this is definitely a form of Ebola. Yeah.
And, is that a tropical disease? Iatrogenic means physician-induced. The 225,000 people died last year, not because somebody didn't care, but in hospitals and physicians who have been induced. So the smartest people have gotten through that and figured out there's some basic fundamentals. So what do they have in common besides not losing money? Second thing that they really do is they look for something else. Big word, they call it asymmetrical risk reward. Okay, I'm lost. They make it simple. They look for how to take very, very little risk and get huge rewards. The average person
refers to rule number 1, really. That little risk goes right back to rule number 1.
It does go back to rule number 1. Yeah. You catch it. Another guy I interviewed is a man named Kyle Bass. Kyle Bass took $30 million, gathered money together, a lot of money, but other people's money, turned into $2 billion in the middle of the subprime crisis.
That's a very big return.
You can say that in 2 years, right?
Oh my God.
So I'm like, how did you do this? It's historic. There's several books you read and they open up the chapter in some of the most historic books written recently. The gentleman who wrote Flyboys also wrote one of the books, and he starts out talking about Kyle Bass doing this incredible piece. It's like being there with him. But the way he did it was he risked 6 cents to make $1. And he just leveraged that up. Wow. So he could be wrong how many times and still break even? 15, he could be wrong 15 times and make money. So, but he's also smart as hell. He looked at things, he evaluated things. It's more detailed than I explained in the book, but the core they all have in common is they risk for valuable returns. I'll tell you a third they all have in common. Tax efficiency. What's the largest cost, what's the largest expense in your life? I should have asked you without saying it. You can figure it out.
It's a no-brainer.
Taxes,
yeah.
There's nothing more expensive in your life than taxes. So I totally believe in paying my taxes. I feel like I can talk about this in a way that's more than fair. Your job, the IRS's job is to make sure they get as much tax from as many people as possible. That's their job. You don't want to be upset about it. That's their job. Your job is to make sure that legally and ethically you pay as little as you possibly can, because the difference between achieving your financial goals or not is you can earn more, but if you earn more and you're giving up 50 or 60%, it's going to cost you a lot. I'm going to give you an example. You know compounding, right? So if you take $1 and you double it every year, first year $1, year 2 it's 2, then it goes 4, then 8, then 16, 32. After you double $1 20 times, it's $1,048,000. That's the power we see with compounding, right? It just explodes. What most people don't know is that costs compound as well. Fees compound as well. Taxes compound as well. So $1,048,000 if you double $1 20 times. If you just pay 33% tax each year, that's just the tax that you pay. What do you think you end up with? Because you read the book, but most people have,
it's depressingly small.
Yes.
Yeah.
People say, well, okay, if it's 33%,
you're like, maybe
you end up with 650,000 out of the million, or no, it's $24,000.
So you're only taking a $975,000 hit there.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because you get, now that's not how it works. Most people don't double their money every year.
Yeah.
It's just to make the point, because that's really what does happen with compounding. So you can turn compounding to your advantage as an investor, or you can turn it to your disadvantage. all these people. So I was with David Swenson, who is the most successful institutional investor of all time. He's the rock star of that area. He's the Warren Buffett of institutional investing for universities. And he runs the Yale's endowment. And this guy's an amazing human being. He's taken them from 1 billion to 24 billion in 2 decades. I mean, and he said to me, he said, Tony, tax efficiency, tax efficiency, tax efficiency. For him, it's built in. He's university, right? Mm-hmm. So I went and found what are the things wealthy people, the 0.001%, it's not the 1%. They and ultra wealthy people and corporations know how to pay taxes efficiently, how to invest efficiently, so that you get a greater return from a smaller amount of money. They all have that in common. And then one more thing is they all know they're going to be wrong. Everyone. When I met Ray Dalio, he's made a 21% return for, I think it's now 23 consecutive years. Now, 21%. And he says to me, Tony, the one thing I know for sure is I'm going to be wrong. I'm like, wow, for Ray Dalio, I watch these guys on the internet, they're never wrong.
They're never, ever wrong.
The guys on TV, they're never wrong. You know, everybody else, I know the answer. And here's Ray Dalio, the Steve Jobs of investing, saying, I know I'm going to be wrong, so I build a system in place. That's why he gets that 85% return. So no matter what happens in the environment, even though I think how it's going to be, I'm wrong and I still make money. And in the book, was one of the things I'm most proud of is I'm sitting here with Ray, 3 hours into the conversation. Turns out he was a fan of my work for 20 years, which was really, really helpful. I've spent 15, 18 hours getting prepared for this so I can pitch and catch with him and go deep. And at the end of it, he's made it really clear that anyone can really win today. But you're not going to win by going to your traditional financial planner. You're not going to win by going to a wealth manager or broker. And he says it flat out. He goes, this is the biggest poker game on earth. And he said there's only a few guys that make money. And unfortunately, you don't have access to 99.999% of the planet. He said, but you can win if you develop what he calls a passive approach, where once a year you put together a formula or a system that will do well no matter what the environment is. And so he's very famous for generating this thing called an all-weather fund. And the all-weather fund is, he made all this money and continues to, and he said, but what if I pass away? I got 1,500 full-time people battling it out to find the best strategy that I implement. If I wasn't here, how would my family be supported? If I wasn't here, how would all my philanthropic efforts continue? And so he started looking at all these ideas that people tell you if you're going to invest and you got your 401k and you're getting older, let's do a balanced portfolio. Let's put half in stocks and half in bonds. And he said, well, that's supposed to protect you. But what happened in 2008? They all went down. And, you know, he can go through decade after decade where this happens. And so he said he figured out that there's a different way of doing asset allocation or deciding whether you have $1,000, $100, $100,000, $1 million. There's a division of where that money should go for you to truly be protected and do well. And he's done this if all his money's in it, all the money for his foundation and for his family's in it. And it doesn't require someone to be constantly doing something. But again, you got $5 billion, you can get that answer, right? So you can't even anymore. You won't take new customers on. So I said to him at the end, he explained the whole thing to me. I explained it in the book.
So he gave me
the entire description, but I said, at the end of it, I said, Ray, this is magical. People are going to be blown away. But the final detail that makes all the difference is the secret sauce, which is exactly what percent in this bucket of investments, what percent here. That's like Coke's secret sauce. I said, without the secret sauce, it'll help people. But it's not going to make them have the greatest return possible.
It's like the engine without the gasoline.
Yeah, and he said, well, Tony goes, I can't give you that. That's my secret sauce and $5 billion. I said, yeah, but you haven't taken a new client for a decade. And I said, you're giving away half your wealth anyway. He's got $14 billion. He's giving half of it away. I said, help the little guy out. Help the average guy out. Come on. And I started teasing him, cajoling him. And then he said, well, it's kind of complex. And I said, well, give me the simple version. He goes, well, I use leverage. I said, give me one without leverage that an average person could do. And as it's happening, I feel the excitement in my body going, I can't believe he's sharing this with me. It's incredibly generous of him, to say the least. And then I went to a group of financial professionals who went and did the testing on it, and they tested it the last 30 years. It's been one of the most volatile times, 40 years, and it said 75 years, 85 to 86% success every single time in that period. As I told you, most money ever lost was 3.9, average loss 1.9%. It dwarfs anything you've seen. So you could get a bigger return with bigger risks, but that's on paper.
Yeah.
This is, and another way, everybody says, past results don't guarantee future results. Legally, everybody says that. I'd say that. But this guy's designed something designed for any marketplace. It's like any season that's going to affect you, he's done it. And so a bunch of my friends said, turn this into a business. Like, don't put this in the book. You can't let somebody go get a book for, $28, $25 and do this. And I said, the spirit was offered was for everybody to get it. So it's in the book. And if somebody wants somebody to implement it for it, there's a team of people that'll do it, but you can do it yourself.
So you're with Ray Dalio.
Yes.
Steve Jobs of investing.
Yes.
Arguably one of the greatest in history.
Yes.
And he discloses the formula.
Yes.
Were you ever thinking, okay, this... surely there has to be more to it than this. Like, how did you verify the efficiency of it?
Well, I went back and I worked with a couple of different groups. Hightower was one of the groups. They're one of the largest registered investment advisors in the world. There's another group called GemStep, and I just had different groups go test it because I would have multiple examples there. And they all came back with the same result. I mean, the rule is the rule. It works the way it works. And the most amazing thing, though, is that...
Well, how did they test it? Because, see, my brain would say, well, this, of course it works for him. He's got the magic power, right? Because I think we all sort of default to that. Well, of course you can do it because you're you, but I'm just a normal guy.
No, the magic power is figuring it out. Knowing the exact percentages is what he knows, and he revealed it. I mean, he just shared it. I mean, it's incredibly generous. I mean, obviously, and some people around him weren't terribly excited about it afterwards, but he stuck to it, which is quite amazing. And he could have overruled it and said, I don't want this going out, but he wants the average investor to be able to have an opportunity, and he knows they're not going to get it from the average person they're going to go. Even somebody with good intentions who's really there. He said, your financial advisor, he said, might be sincere, they might be caring, they might be honest, they might really care about you, they might invest their own money the same way they're telling you. He said, but how many gold medals have they won?
Mm-hmm. They can still be wrong.
And he said, I'm going to be wrong at times, but he said, I win gold medals. And he said, and so he figured that formula out. He laid it out. And then he's not the end all be all. There are many. This book, I've got 50 people sharing with you their best formulas. The question I asked them all was, if you couldn't pass on any of your money to your children, only a set of strategies or a portfolio or an investment insights, what would it be? What would you do? And so I have them from all these different people in the book as well. There's never been a book in history. It's very much like Think and Grow Rich, where, as you said, Napoleon Hill went and interviewed all the most successful people in the world, and he was looking to find out what was it. It was their desire. It was their hunger. It was their mastermind. It was transmuting sexual energy, if you know the book and how he describes all these principles. What I want to do is go beyond the psychological side and go to the actual where they put their money strategy. I want to get their brain too, but I want to know what it was. And that's what this book is filled with. So if you want to know what Carl Icahn does, you can see, and you can see how to invest with Carl Icahn. If you want to know what a Ray Dalio does, you can actually see. If you want to know what Paul Tudor does to become successful and have, now it's 28 straight years he's actually made money, never losing, then you can actually open the book and find it. It's pretty unique. And you don't have to be some complex investor. You can be a soccer mom just getting going. You could be a kid who's in debt coming out of college, and you learn the steps. It's 7 steps. You learn each step, little step at a time to do, that'll take you from where you are to where you want to be financially, but it uses the best on earth as the basis of how to do it.
So you're with arguably Ray Dalio, the greatest investor in history, or certainly one of them. Yes. And you have gotten this information from him that no one has ever been able to get, which doesn't surprise me at all, by the way. It's like, of course, you would be able to go over there and get him to tell you this. So he gives it to you, and then what do you do? Because my mind would immediately go to, well, he's given me this information, but of course he can do it because it's him. He is like Superman of this, but how did you, I don't want to use the word verify because it would be doubting this person's ability, but how did you reassure that the average person could apply this and have success?
Well, I went to several different financial institutions and said, please take this formula and apply it back 30 years, 40 years, 75 years, and let's see how it did.
What's that mean, though?
That means they go back and every year there's a return on each of these assets, the bonds, stocks, et cetera, commodities, and they know exactly what it is historically. So they say, if I had this percentage of this percentage of that, what was my return? Did I lose money?
Did I make money? If I'd done what he did, according to this formula, for the past 75 years?
75 years.
And what happened?
It's unbelievable. The overall average over 75 years is just under 10% return. So beating the market. And an interesting part of it, though, was you didn't have the volatility because he didn't lose money. So 85% of the year, 85 to 86% of the time, depending upon what time period, but with only a 1% difference, it was successful and made money. By the way, in the 15% where it wasn't, sometimes it lost money 0.003%, which means you really broke even. But we call it losing money because it didn't make money, right? So,
what was the worst?
The worst was minus 3.95, which means less than 4%. And that was 2008 when from top to bottom the market lost 51%.
He still beat the market.
It destroyed the market. It did way better than the market. So, and that was the worst year. The average loss was 1.9%. So, I mean, that's what I try to say to someone. I was mentioning to you, if you go to Vegas and someone said, go play blackjack, go play whatever you want to play, You're going to be absolutely guaranteed to succeed 85% of the time over the last 75 years. There's no guarantee the future will be the same as the past, but if the only time you're going to lose 1.9%, I think you'd probably gamble relatively. So this is not a gamble. I don't tell people put all your money here. I show people there are many strategies. This is just one that's mind-boggling in how it's performed over such a long period of time.
So, today, you mentioned it earlier, today you really cannot turn on the news or browse the internet and not see either an ad about how everything's horrible, hear a story about how everything is horrible, or hear someone complaining about how everything is just terrible from a financial perspective, from an investment perspective. And I think there's a tremendous amount of fear in the world. And I think this is for a good reason. I don't think it's foolish fear. I think it's either manufactured by media or reactionary fear to recent events. So with that said, and knowing that so many of us have just been clobbered over the past 5 or 6 years from a financial standpoint, whether it's seeing 401ks dissolve or jobs go away or anything. How does someone have the confidence, and what would like a first step be for someone saying, you know what, I've had enough. This is the end. Today is the day I'm going to turn it around and take control. Where do they begin?
You got to decide whether you're going to accept it as it is. And if you do that, your fate's sealed. Or if you want to still win. Because in spite of everything you've heard, the game is totally winnable. And the guys that know how to win are the ones I went and interviewed, and I got a 7-step plan from them, 1 step at a time that you could do starting from nothing and get where you really want to go. But you also have to remember when you look at the news is not designed to inform. The news is designed to startle. That's how you sell something for the news, right? I got to get your attention. And there's so many things in your pocket around you getting your attention. So Ebola, 32,000 people die every year of the flu. One person has got Ebola. Oh my God, we're all going to die of Ebola. And the news jumps on it 24/7. So you have to be able to separate yourself. And the way you separate yourself is you start to feed your own mind. Because if you don't, weeds are automatic, right? My teacher, Jim Rohn, used to teach me that. So what I started doing is saying, I need to get around the people that are succeeding and find out what they think. Are they freaked out, or do they see opportunity? And some of the investors one of them passed away a few years ago that I interviewed for this book. One of them is a man named Sir John Templeton, and he made all his money at times he called maximum pessimism, and we're far from that. Maximum pessimism is World War II when, Hitler invades Poland and everybody thinks the world's over. That's when he made his most money. When Japan was hit with, nuclear bombs, that's when he made his most money right afterwards, because people think bad things are going to go on forever, and they think good things are going to go on forever. Wherever they are, that's where they think life's going to be. So the answer to your question is, you got to get in the game. And I was talking to a friend of mine who also works in one of my companies just the other day, and he was telling me something very similar to what you said. He said, look, I consider myself to be passionate about investing because I'm committed to getting my family to be financially free. But in 2008, I got clobbered. I lost almost half of all my assets. He said, it just nailed me. And now, he said, I've missed the last 5-year bull market. When everybody's talking about how bad it is, the market has been going straight up like this. Now, a big part of that's been manipulated by the Fed, but without even knowing that, he missed out on some of the biggest growth of his life because he didn't know what to do. So here's what I told him. What if there was a way, because ultra-wealthy people have this, and I explain it in the book, where you could have been in the stock market, but you would have been guaranteed not to lose a dime, and you would get most of the upside, not all. Some cases 80%, some cases 90%. Would you have been in? He said, of course. Well, I said, that's how wealthy people invest. That's that part I talked to you about of take the least amount of risk for the greatest possible reward. Mm-hmm. And there are tools like that that are available. But I think really what people have to first do is to figure out how they can win. And what I do in the book is I say, let's take it a step at a time. And the first step is you got to get in the game. You got to understand how to tap the power of compounding, as simple as that is. And most people have heard about it. They know it. But tell me, what did you experience when you started to read about that?
I wish you hadn't asked me the video. I'm embarrassed to tell you. I'm 42 years old. I've had a great career. Still
made a lot of money.
Never even fully comprehended what compound interest was until you told the story of the two brothers.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking, well, either I am disproportionately ignorant or we as a society really just don't know the basics of how to make money. And there's another great point you made in the book, actually, which is we believe that if we want financial security, we just simply keep performing, run on the hamster wheel even faster. But the compound interest, the facts of compound interest and the way you presented compound interest really is a significant eye-opener. which immediately made me wish I had a time machine. It was like, why didn't you write the book? 20 years ago, I'd be done. We would be having, who has the biggest helicopter contest right now?
Well, everybody's heard of compounding interest. Most people understand it intellectually, but they haven't got in their gut to really what it means, or they'd act on it. Because, you talk to Warren Buffett, he said, how'd you become wealthy? He said, good genes and compound interest. That's it. It's like time and compounding. Most people think a delusion. And a lot of clients, and your industry and my industry as well, have done it. They're like, how can I get rich overnight? How can I go make this big hit? And if you look historically at the people that made the most income, most of them, not all, but most of them don't hang on to it. Because if you look at, a Curt Schilling, right? Guy wins 2, Major League Baseball World Series, Red Sox history, makes $100 million. He's bankrupt right now. Right, lost it all. You look at somebody like Michael Jackson, made more money than anybody knows. He passed away, but when he passed away, he was upside down in his estate. You look at Mike Tyson. My God, Mike Tyson made $500 million in income and went bankrupt.
That almost seems like you would have to try to do that.
Well, you'd be surprised. Most of us, all of us, average person, the more we earn,
the more we spend.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they don't realize, buy an island, buy a plane, it goes so fast and people have no clue that it's there. So what really does work is compounding. And the example you gave was, I sat down with just a brilliant man, Burt Malkiel. He wrote a book called Random Walk Down Wall Street, which has been like one of the top investing books for like 20, 30 years. He's a Princeton professor. And he created something called introduced the idea of indexing, where you didn't have to buy all the stock market. You could put a little money in and get a piece of everything. As a gross generalization, I'd explain it really quick. But he told me the story. He says, Tony, most people know compounding. He goes, oh yeah, I know compounding. He said, but they don't use it because they don't get it. It's tapping the ultimate power. He said, Einstein called it one of the greatest discoveries of the human universe, right? Because here's what happens. He gave me the example. He told me the story that you read. It's the story of 2 brothers. He said, one brother starts at 20 years old, and he puts aside $4,000 a year. That's it. And he puts it in the stock market where it's grown 10% a year, and he's not being taxed. He has it in a tax-deferred environment. And he does that from 20 to 40. And then he stops investing. His other brother doesn't start till he's 40, and he goes from 40 to 65. So they both put in an amount of money, but the guy went from 20 to 40, did 20 years of investing at 4,000. The guy that was 40 to 65 did 25 years of investing. More money on the guy on the right side here, spent more. William and James will call him. James started when he was 40 and went to 65. At the end of their 65, when they both hit 65 and it's time, let's say, to start tapping into the income of this, one man who started earlier and put less money in, right, William, he's got $2 million available, 2.5 to be exact, and his brother's got less than 500,000.
That's amazing.
A $2 million difference.
And it's simple math.
It's simple math.
What did Einstein call it? The single greatest discovery
exactly.
of mankind?
One of the greatest discoveries.
But as a society, we've trivialized it. It's like, oh, no, that's just for old people or something who have gazillions of dollars. We need to try to find the hottest tech stock to sink all of our money into and do this. And maybe sort of use the right combination of affirmations and visualization to make the stock go up or something. But it's phenomenal.
It's truly phenomenal. I mean, he gave another example to me was Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin in 1790, I think it was when he passed away in the late 1770s, he left to $1,000. That's it, just $1,000 to his 2 favorite cities, Philadelphia and Boston. But he had instructions in his will that the money would be left in the market and would grow, and it couldn't be touched for 100 years. At that point, they could take out half of it and then leave it in for another 100 years, whatever the difference was. The $1,000 grew. They took out half, $500,000, 100 years into it, both of them, which is a nice size return for a $1,000 investment. But at 200 years, it was worth $6.5 million for each city. I mean, $1,000.
$1,000.
Growing over that time period. So it's a 3,000% return. So it's amazing. You can have almost no money, and if you give it a little time and you invest it in the right balance, we don't lose it. Remember, we talked about that. The kinds of returns that people can get is just astronomical. You could go out, people say, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't have the money to invest. And I said to people, I said, give up one of your nights out that you're going to go to dinner and have a pizza instead and save $40 this week. Do that 4 times a month. $40 a week, $2,000 a year. Grow that at 8%. Do it over 40 years, and you got $500,000. I mean,
that's serious business.
For the average person, that's a number that would be amazing for them. Considering 1 out of 3 baby boomers has $1,000. That's what their total savings is today. 1 out of 3 baby boomers.
That's very scary.
It's mind-bogglingly scary. 77% of our society, almost 80%, 77%, says they have major financial stress and less than 40% have any kind of a financial plan. It's mind-boggling. So this is an area that nobody wants to look at because we think it's too complex. And it's made complex by jargon and by language. And what I've really tried to do is just cut through all that and say, let me just show you, it's really not that hard. There's some fundamental things you can do literally 15, 20 minutes over the course of a year. And there isn't nothing in this book is my ideas. Like, it's not, oh, here's Tony Robbins' financial plan. Who does he think he is? Well, A, for 21 years, I've coached one of the top financial traders literally in existence who's not lost money in those entire years. B, I've got access to everybody. But C, I didn't put what I thought. Emotionally, like what to do psychologically, that's my skill set for, 36 years. But what to do financially, none of it is from me. It's all from the best on earth. I just made it simple enough for you to actually follow through and take action on it.
All right, so step one, if I'm interpreting you right, is to really is accurate thinking.
Well, really, step one is stop being a consumer and become an investor. And that you don't need a lot of money to invest. That what you really have to do is decide on a percentage of the money you have that you're going to invest. And for a lot of people, they say, Tony, I can't do that. I can't put aside 10%. I can't put aside 15%. If you don't, what's ahead of you, a lot of years ahead of you, is going to be so painful. You don't want to be in that place. But better yet, why not create great quality of life now? I met with Shlomo Bernatzi and Richard Thayer as his partner, who's a Nobel Prize winner. And they came up with the coolest system because they're behavioral economic guys. You go, oh my God, what the hell is that? They study how our natural behavior screws us up financially and how to avoid it, how to get ourselves out of that trap. And one of the things they came up with is people say, I have no money to invest. I can't. I'm spending every dollar, which most people are. And they said, how about we do this? He said, we have this mindset in our mind that we're going to do things in the future differently than we do today. We feel good about it. If I asked you, do you want next week, we're going to have a meeting, we have a party. Do you want to have chocolate or do you want to have, some really good healthy food? You might say really healthy food until we get there 2 weeks from now and you change your point of view when you see the chocolate. So what he did was he came up with a strategy called save more for tomorrow. Here's what it is. Let's say you're only going to save 3%, 4%, 5% today. But you make a deal at your company that every time you get a raise, that 3% of that raise of your money is going to go into what we call your freedom fund. This area where you're going to make investments and eventually grow to a point where you are financially free, where you don't have to work another day of your life because your investments provide an income that replaces the income that you used to get from working. And I show people exactly how to do that. But what's cool is they did this with a group of blue-collar workers. And in 12 years, these are guys that normally don't make much money at all. Most of them started with 3 or 5% savings. They were saving by the end of this thing 16%. Now, when you start saving 16%, it starts compounding.
That's serious.
You get totally financially set. I mean, you get where you'll have lifelong financial stability, financial freedom, and we show you how to do it. And it's all automated, so you don't think about it. The best way to make sure that you invest is pick a percentage and automate it so you never see it. It goes into your freedom fund, and then later in the book we show you how do you decide where that money goes so that you can build enough money that you stop making the worst trade of your life. Let me tell you what that trade is. Trading time for money. Mm-hmm. Most people don't think of themselves as a financial trader, but they are. They're trading time for money. You want to trade instead money for money. You want money to become your slave. You want money while you sleep to go to work for you. And no matter how hard you work, and no matter how much you work, it's still you until you make money your slave. And so this process, step one, you stop being a consumer, you become an investor by deciding a specific number you're going to set aside and you automate it. We'll show you how to do that as the first step.
What's the next one?
Step two is you got to know the rules before you get in the game. We say this all the time, and I'm sure you've seen it. Anytime somebody with money meets somebody with experience, the person with experience ends up with the money. It's just how it works. So I teach people 9 financial lies that have been marketed that systematically rob you of your economic well-being. And so it's like, if you're going to get in the game, you got to know what the insiders know.
That is a really heavy statement. 9 financial lies that systematically rob you. There was 9 lies that systematically rob you of your financial well-being. That's worth probing a little bit if it's okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. What are they? Because now I'm like, I've got to know what this is. That's a big deal.
Well, I'll give you a sample. Where do most people, the average person, they work their tail off. They have some money maybe in a 401k. Mm-hmm. Where do I put that money? I don't know. What do you think? Let's find a 5-star, Morningstar, maybe. What do you think? What should we do? There's no understanding whatsoever what it means. And because of that, you also don't understand the fees involved. Mm-hmm. And you might say, I'm getting paid 1%. There's 1% fees. That's what somebody will advertise or tell you. But they don't know there are 17 other fees that have different names that you have to be able to read a 52-page prospectus and understand. There's a man named Hilton Smith, this guy's got a degree in economics. And here's a guy, you talk to him and he'll tell you he had, I think he had 5 or 6 different mutual funds with all these different, agreements. And so this guy's got a degree in economics and it took him 2 weeks of reading, digging, trying to figure out what these words meant to find out that in fees alone, this is somebody that's making, at this time, I think he said the average person who makes $30,000 a year, and most of your listeners and viewers are way beyond that. Mm-hmm. They're giving up $150,000 in fees just over the life of their investment. Somebody in your category, it's more like $500,000 to $1 million in fees. Because the difference between a 1% fee, a 2%, a 3% fee sounds like nothing. But remember compounding again?
Exactly.
Okay, right. So I'll give you an example. If you put $1 million aside and you're going to grow it over 30 years at 8%, and you say, I'm paying 1%, 2%, or 3%, the person who pays 1% is going to have $7.6 million. The person who pays 3% is going to have $4.3 million. You're going to have 75% less money. So if I said to you, here's the deal. How'd you like this investment, Frank? How about you make an investment and here's how it'll work. You give me the money. You take all the risk. If we go make this investment together, I'm going to do it for you. I'm going to direct it for you. In the end, I'm going to put up no money and I'm going to take no risk. And I'm going to end up over the life of your investing with about 40 to 60% of your total return. I take no investment risk. I put no capital in. And if you lose your money. But if you win, I win. Would you take that investment?
I would not. And I think whoever's doing that is very, very good at selling themselves.
That's called a mutual fund.
Seriously. So,
because what's happening is when you have fees, the average mutual fund fee, check out Forbes, they'll show you. I interviewed the guy who did it. 3.1% is the average real all-in fees, not the expense ratio, which is the language that you probably don't even know, but they tell you, your fees are just 1%. 3.1% is the average. So when you do that, every 1% is worth 20% of what you accumulate over a lifetime of investing compounded. So 3 is 60%.
That's serious.
It's mind-boggling. Who'd make that investment? Most people wouldn't, but they don't know. It's too complex. I'm so busy. What should I do? Here we go. What you don't know will hurt you. What you won't know will take your financial wealth. And so one of the things I did is I want to make it simple. Let me just show you not only what to do, but what not to do is just as important because it'll give you financial freedom. And so I have 9 of these. So one of them is fees matter. And I show you just quickly how to be able to do it. And I even have a site now. I went to an organization, amazing organization, that is a registered investment advisor. That means they are legally required to put your needs ahead of their own. Mm-hmm. If you go to a wealth advisor, a broker, there are 310 different names for that position, by the way. It's a salesman who works for a big bank. Their job is to sell you their products. If you go to a Toyota, they're going to sell you a Toyota, not a Cadillac and not a Volkswagen. So people don't realize that somehow. They think this person, because they're sincere and they care, most of them, and they may invest their own money the same way, they know what to do. They're part of a captive system. Mm-hmm. So a fiduciary is a big word, or registered investment advisor, words most people will be overwhelmed by, is somebody whose job it is they only get paid, not commissions, only get paid to serve your interest. And they can pick from anything. So I went to one of the largest registered investment advisors in the world, a group called Hightower. They have $30 billion in assets, but they only serve, the wealthiest people in the world. And I said to them, I met with the founder, his name's Elliot, brilliant man. And I said, Elliot, you care so much about full transparency, people not being cheated, fees, ripping out and stripping out all the fees, showing what's real, but you're helping the wealthiest people in the world. How about the average person? The average person, 50% of the United States has less than $25,000 of assets. He said, Tony, I'd love to help them, but you can't make money doing that. I said, you don't need to make money. You're making plenty of money. I said, how about, and I introduced him to a person who's been working and managing my assets for about 7 years now, a man named AJ Gupta of Stronghold. So why don't you guys come together and use technology and create a way for people to go online, be able to put in whatever they have in their accounts and have it automatically show them what they're really paying. Most people have no clue what they're really paying versus what they could get the same stock or bond for. A lot of times you'd be paying 10 or 20 times more to buy the same stocks or bonds in your mutual fund that you could have in something called an index. It costs 30 times less, 20 times less, 10 times less, exact same product. But you'll know that the minute you click the button. I want them to know. I said, why don't you design it so they can immediately see how much exposure they have? What's the volatility? How about you make it so you can compare it to other choices? What's their real return for their investments? Most people have no clue. Show it to them in seconds and do it for free. He said, well, how do I make money? I said, some of the wealthier ones will become clients of yours. The ones that aren't, you showed them how to do it, and hopefully they'll grow and become clients. So based on the goodwill, those two groups, Stronghold and this group Hightower, have come together and formed this. And it's kind of like test your broker, take your broker for a drive. So you can find out these things I'm talking about by pushing a button.
You don't have to spend 3 weeks
an
economist reading the...
Yes. And I'm proud of the role that I played in putting these guys together, to say the least.
That's incredible. And the tool is readily available
online now
for everyone who has the book. That's outstanding. Dude, this is horrible. Because I'm hearing you, and I have been ignorantly happy with what's going on with my financial situation.
Well, you know what's interesting? You're one of those people. You found a way to add so much value to people's lives. You've earned enormous amounts of money. But as you well know, then there are tough financial times. And it may not even be your business. It might be your personal life. It might be, something that happens for somebody you care about, you need money for. And if you don't have a system, I call it a money machine. If you aren't building a money machine that makes money while you sleep, you've done that with business to some extent. But how'd you like to have a business with no employees, no overhead, right? You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. That's what this money machine is. But you got to get in the game. But you can't get in the game first. You got to get started. You got to decide you're going to be the investor. Then you got to understand the rules of the game. Now you get in the game so you can start to begin to win.
During this whole conversation, so I've started out in 1999. I had $10,000, and I gave it to a friend of mine who was a year behind me in high school, and I was 27 or something. And he's like, Kern, baby, I'm a stockbroker now. Give me some money. And I'm like, I've got extra $10,000 here. Take it. Puts me in a mutual fund, 90% lost. So, which was normal. He was like, yeah, well, that kind of is expected. I'm like, great, this is wonderful. So then never invested again up until maybe 10 years ago. And my mother is someone. And so I just use who she used because we didn't lose all the money. That was the criteria, is I can take some money and put it in and whatever, give it to this person, and my tax benefits are slightly better, and she won't lose it. And she didn't lose it, which is great. So we've made probably, I don't know, $75, $80 on the investment over time. And so this whole time I've thought, well, you must be magic in order to actually find success at this. And I'm thinking that my belief system has been ignorant at best, based on absolutely
you've been based on it. It's been based on your real experience. One of my first investments, I lived in Marina Del Rey. I'll never forget. Young guy, just getting going, and this beautiful blonde woman pulls up in a brand new Rolls Royce in Marina Del Rey, and she's getting all this cleaning. And I said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "What do you and your husband do for a living?" I'm obviously asking for two reasons as a single male at that time, right? She goes, "My husband and I, we have this company," and she told me what the company was. We're a penny stock, and I went home and put all my money in penny stock. And I understand she had the Rolls Royce and why I didn't. Right?
Yeah,
she was a great marketer. No, most people don't make money investments. It's like I tell people. I say, I'm not stupid. Most people are not physically fit and strong and healthy. Most people don't have a passionate relationship that 10 years later is still alive and loving and passionate. Most people are not really happy and out of their mind with their job. Most people don't make money in their business. 96% fail in a 10-year period. Most people don't do well investing. Most people don't, but I'm interested in the few that do. And I'm interested in knowing what they do, and I'm obsessed. I'm a hunter of human excellence, and I've spent a 4-year hunt to find the very best people on earth and say, what do you do? And now, how do I get that to be something that an average person can do? How do I make sure they get access to those things? So it isn't just something rich people you read about do. I could do this with $100, $1,000, $10,000, whatever the case may be. I have a woman that works with me that has sailed around the world twice and around Cape of Africa. I mean, some brutal things. She is one bright, strong, incredible lady. But she was a disaster in finances till she was working with me on this book, and I had her be my reader. I said, read this, I want to see if you get this. And I was bouncing off of her. But I mean, in the first 5 chapters of the book, we were reading it, she had a brand new car. Like, what the hell happened? She goes, I did all my expenses. I figured out what I'm spending here. I can have a better car based on this interest rate, and I still have more money to invest. And I've watched her life change. She's got a plan now. She's 43 years old. She'll be completely financially set in the next 10 years, 9.5 years. She's got the plan laid out, knows what to do. She's always been a smart woman, but who's going to coach you to do this? Who's going to open the door? You're not going to see Ray Dalio. You're not going to meet the few guys that beat the market. I mean, here's one for you. Another lie. 96% of mutual funds, 96% don't match the market, meaning they're not the same as if you just bought what's called an index. An index is just a piece of all the biggest companies, for example, in the S&P, the Standard & Poor's. you don't have to spend any money to buy that index, like 0.20%, not 3%. And you get the same companies, Apple, all these great companies. 96% of mutual funds over a 10-year period don't match that. So what does that mean? It means only 4% succeed in a 10-year period, and the 4% is always changing. So let me help this for anybody listening. So they go, oh, it's math. No, what do you mean?
What is this math business of which you speak?
Let me show you. Watch this. So I'll give you an example so these numbers come to life for you. If 96% of the chances you're going to pick the wrong mutual fund, you only got a 4% chance of succeeding, right? That's major league gambling. So let's say you play blackjack, and anybody's played blackjack, it's 21, right? And you get 2 face cards drop on you. 20 in front of you, 21. And some inner idiot in you says, hit me. You have an 8% chance of getting 21 with 2 face cards. You have a 4% chance of picking the right mutual fund.
I think I'd rather take the 21.
So what I show you is you can get the market. You can become an investor in American business and not have any of those fees, almost nothing, 20 basis points, for example, with a company like Vanguard. And now you get to grow with all of American business, which has done well in recessions, depressions. They've always found a way to rebound. And those are the people who have done well. Equities have done extremely well. Now, that's not the only investment in the world, but it's like not knowing that will get you in trouble. So this book is, let's go through those steps. It's like become an investor, figure out a percentage you're going to actually save. Let's automate it so you don't think about it. Step 2, let's learn the rules of the game so I don't get into the mutual fund that eats all my fees. I'm going to learn how to get somebody to represent me, or I'm going to go get the information and know what's really going on online in a matter of seconds. Step 3, I got to make the game winnable. How much was it going to take for you to be financially secure, independent, or free if I asked you?
About $20 million.
$20 million. You've sat down and calculated that number.
Only because I read the dang book. I was just saying earlier that the sports car dealerships they're going to hate you just on the loss of my business alone. After reading the book, I was like, wait a minute, this car actually is going to cost me about $3 million over 20 years if I buy it. I can just keep the one I have.
And put that money and get that money be all your cash at the end. No, what's really amazing is you know that number because you read the book. Most people, they don't know. They make the number up. If they go to a financial planner, the person will say, well, here's what you need to do to retire. You need 10 times your income. So if you make $100,000 a year, you need $1 million. That's based on the theory that once you've built up to $1 million, you can invest that money and make a 10% return every year without taking risk.
Okay.
And get $100,000 a year. Now, I don't know who you know that does that regularly in this environment.
Nobody.
But almost nobody. Very few people. So it's a lie. It used to be that kind of number years ago. It's 20 times. So you made $100,000 and you want to have $100,000 a year for the rest of your life without working. Guess what? You need 20 times that, $2 million. Seems like such a huge number. For most people, I'll never get there is the thought. So they never begin. Mm-hmm. So what I show people is first 2 things. Extremely wealthy people know that if I can eliminate the tax issue on this, and there are legal ways to do it, the IRS shows ultra wealthy people how to do, I can reduce that number by 30 to 50%. So instead of $1 million, perhaps it's $500,000. That's a lot more close to reachable over time, over a decade or 15 years or 20 years. So I teach in the book how to do that. But in addition to that, I show you there's 3 goals. A short, medium, and long term. And the short-term goal I call financial security, not absolute financial freedom. And here's what I mean by financial security. How would you feel if, for the rest of your life, 5 things were taken care of without working? You'd work to do other things, but these things were covered. And the 5 things are, your mortgage for your home is paid forever. Never had to think about it again. All the utilities are paid forever. All the food for your family is paid forever. All of your insurance is paid forever, like basic fundamental insurance, right? And all your transportation needs. If those 5 things were handled and never had to work for it, other things you wanted you work for, you were doing something you love, how would you feel? Most people go, that would feel incredible. That number on average is about half as much as what people are pursuing in the future. So if that number was $1 million, it comes down to about $500,000. $500,000 comes to $250,000, because now you've got your basic life met. And then what happens is when you succeed and you're feeling secure, you get momentum. Mm-hmm. And now you start saying, okay, I'd like to be financially independent, where I don't have to work for anything to have the life I have today. Mm-hmm. I'll show you how to do that. And I show you exactly what that number is for you. It's different for every person. And then I show you, well, what if you can have a better lifestyle than you have today without working, where all that money just came from what you'd invested in because it compounded. And I show you how to do it. And in the book, we actually have a calculator that you go online. We have an app. And you put in what your numbers are and you can test it. What if I save 5%, 10%, 15%? What if I earn this? And it shows you over time, this is what it's worth to you at different rates of return. So you can say, here's my plan. I'm going to do this and this and this conservatively. This is what I'll do in the middle end. And here's what I might do aggressively. So you can actually finally really know what it takes to be financially secure, independent, and free.
And you totally demystify it, which is great.
Completely out.
One of the biggest things that I think really deserves careful attention are these fees.
Yes.
So because of the 3%, that means you have to make 3% just to break even. And what now, when the folks you were talking about and that you have interviewed, these 50 masters, when they talk about, surely they talk about kind of an average return.
Yes.
Can you share that number?
Well, it depends on who it is. They all have radically different returns. But I'll tell you, if you can be in a position where you make 8 to 10%, but you do it efficiently. So I'll give you an example. Let's say today someone makes a 6% return. And that's not uncommon. We had an explosive year in the stock market, just recently. But overall, 6 to 8% is a range that most people count on. The market over the last 20 years has averaged about 9%. The average investor who's in mutual funds has averaged 2.5%. That's according to Dalbar, one of the biggest research companies that's out there.
So you're already a basis point or so behind, or 10 basis points behind.
More than basis points. I'm talking about percentages. Let me give you an example. Let's say you made 6% and you're paying 3.1% in fees. You have 2.9% left. If you're investing in a mutual fund, they tell you buy and hold. They don't buy and hold. They constantly trade. Because they constantly trade and don't hold those assets long, you don't get an investment tax rate. You're charged ordinary income tax rate. So somebody like you're going to pay 50% on that amount they did. So check it out. You made a return, right? They're going to charge you a fee first, 6%. They're going to charge you, let's call it 3 for simple math. Mm-hmm. You got 3 left, and now you're going to pay 50% on that. So you got a big total of 1.5% while you took all the rest of the stock market.
I could have just gone to the bank and bought a CD or something.
Well, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Dalbar showed that 2.5%, you could have had treasuries, no risk, and done better than most mutual fund investors. The market does one thing, what you do is another. If you don't understand fees, if you don't understand taxes, and what's so cool is it's not that complex. There's a way to put kind of an umbrella around you tax-wise, legally, the IRS sanctions it. It's been used by wealthy people forever. I walk you through how you can do it for yourself. It changes the game. It allows you to get to your goals 30 to 50% faster. And it doesn't matter when you started.
It almost sounds like a major part of this, not to oversimplify it, but from my translation is learn all of the dumb stuff that everyone's doing and stop doing the dumb stuff. That most of these extremely successful, brilliant people have just cut out a lot of the really dumb stuff.
They have. Well, they have, and they've done one more thing, though, that's really important. It's the most important investment decision. Imagine you got in the game, you're investing something, it doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you're investing for the future, you're setting some money aside. You know what not to do. You know what you're after, and you got a plan. You made the game winnable. It's not some giant number. A kid will tell me, I need $1 billion. And I break down actually to charter the planes he wants to go on 10 trips a year, to rent the Branson's Island instead of buying the island. He can do the whole thing for less than $20 million for the rest of his life and never work again, right? Yeah. 20 million versus $1 billion is 2 different universes, or different places. But the next piece is step 4 is really critical. It's the most important one of all. It's the most important investment decision you're going to make. And that decision is called asset allocation, or it's like the ultimate bucket list. Mm-hmm. It's the money you put, what proportions you put, the strategy you use. I'm going to put so much in stock, so much in bonds, so much in whatever the case may be, different assets. That's what you live and die by. In fact, David Swensen, who's the most successful institutional investor of all time from Yale, $1 billion to $24 billion in growth in 2 decades. Mind-boggling. Worth paying attention to. He said to me directly, he said, Tony, all your returns come from asset allocation. More important than buying Apple, more important than buying any stock, you're going to be wrong on some stock. You're going to be wrong on some bond. You're going to be wrong on some real estate investment. It's having the right breakup. And the guys that are the best in the world have figured out the right balance, like Ray Dalio, like David Swensen. And so what I have in the book is their exact proportions of what they do, recommended that you wouldn't be able to do. It's like I sat down when I was sitting with David, he let me come in. I'm sitting here in Yale's kind of hallowed halls, and I'm like, do you know what I do? And he said, do you think you'd be sitting here in Yale having a conversation with me? He said, your work changed my life, my family's life, this person's life. And so those things opened the doors, and they shared this with me. So the right asset allocation, think of it this way. Most of us make the wrong decision when we're driving our car and we're in the slow lane and we move, or you're in the grocery store and you go, that looks like the faster lane. What do you think your chances of making the wrong decision financially are? You're going to make the wrong decision.
Exponentially higher than...
You're going to. Yeah. So if your success depends on you making the right decision, you're done. And that's where most people are. When you know how to divide up your assets, right? They call it the only free lunch. when you can divide them up across different assets, so different types of investments over different timelines, even over different countries, it allows you to know when the losses happen, you're not wiped out. We all know, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Most basic idea of asset allocation, but most people don't know what to do. Sounds so complex. I teach you in these 3 buckets. There's a security bucket where you put stuff in that is really protected. It's not going to drop. It's not going to grow big, but it's not going to drop. There's a bucket for growth that has some more risk, and there's a bucket for dreams where you do the fun stuff right now, not 30 years in the future, so you make money and, in the end of your life, you have something. And I show people how to figure out based on how comfortable are you with risk, how old are you, how much time do you have to accumulate, what's your source of income. When we look at those 3 things, we do it online with a little test, and then you can immediately go online and say, okay, here's a set of asset allocations that have been put together by people like Ray Dalio. I can compare it to whatever I have right now, and I can see what the returns have been over the last 10 years. Right there in 2 seconds.
That's invaluable.
It's mind-boggling. It's a dream. And I've only been able to do it because I've been working with the best people in the world, and they got excited about the mission. I mean, they got excited about seeing what could be possible in this area. And some of them, my background of not having food at times of Thanksgiving. And I shared with you that, I've been feeding people. I started with 2 families and then 4. I started when I was 17. Now this year will be 55 million. I've gotten these guys to join me in that task. So Ray Dalio donated 1 million meals. Mark Burnett, or Benioff, I should say, from Salesforce.com, donated 1 million meals. So along the way, these guys not only shared their insights, but they're playing a role to help people who society's forgotten, while we're also helping people through the book, which I'm really, really grateful for.
So once you know what to do with the money.
Yes.
Asset allocation, to use grown-up terminology.
Yes.
Right?
Just buckets. A certain amount of money I'm going to put where it's secure. It's going to grow slowly. A certain amount I'm going to put where it's less secure. I got more risk, but I got more potential reward. A certain amount I'm going to enjoy today. How do I know that percentage? You pick that percentage and then you forget about it. Whatever you're going to invest, 20% goes here, 30% there, 40% goes there. You divide it up. That's all it really is.
And you just set it up to happen.
Automatically.
So you're not having to think about it all.
Correct. Or you model somebody else, right?
That's even better.
Yeah.
Set it up automatically based on their model.
Yes, of what they've already proven. There. Yes.
What's the next step?
Next step is you've got to create an income for life. And then when I say income for life, it's so interesting because I ask people all the time, why do you invest? What are you investing for? What would your response be?
So I'll have money when I'm old.
Right?
Yeah.
So some people say, so I'll have money when old. Some people say, so I can grow my assets. Some people say, so they tell me all kinds of things. There's only one reason to invest: income. Mm-hmm. You can have all these companies, but eventually you have to convert that to income to be able to live a great life. Mm-hmm. The final purpose of all investing is income. And most of us don't know that anymore because all of the marketing machines, large banks, if you are taking income, it's no longer in their account.
So it's bad.
So it takes it away from them. So one of the things that I looked at was I started looking around, and most people know the power of life insurance, right? Don't like it, but I want to make sure if something happens to me, my family's taken care of. But what if you live? And here's what's crazy. The number one fear amongst baby boomers is not death. Death is a far number 2, way down the list, number 2 percentage-wise. Number 1 is running out of money before they die, having a life where they don't have income. And it's going to happen, according to all the statistics, to about 75% of the population, right? It's mind-boggling. So what do I do without any income? That's why you see people now in their 70s as greeters at Walmart. It's just they got to figure out what to do because they never figured this stuff out in the beginning. So there is income insurance. Income insurance is old. It's a 2,000-year-old approach to making sure you have money. Julius Caesar was the first one who created it. And here's what it was. They created a pool of money where the soldier's going to go out. And everybody put their money in, and it was held by the government. And whoever came back, they split up that pool of money over time with annual payments. So the word annuity that we all have heard, the word annuity is annual payments. Now you get annuities that pay you every month, but that process that's out there is one of the most successful opportunities for people to create an income. In other words, there's a stage in my life where you build like you are. Mm-hmm. You're grow, and you're growing up the mountain. You're saving, you're investing, and you're building it to a giant critical mass, to a jackpot. Mm-hmm. When you get to the top of the mountain, there's going to be a stage where you're not going to want to work. You probably will. Guys like you and I will always work. You don't have to work. And therefore, you tend to work harder.
I couldn't imagine not doing it.
It's just like I couldn't either. Yeah. Steve Wynn's a dear friend of mine. He's 72 years old. He works harder now than any time I've known him. Just crazy. T. Boone Pickens is a friend of mine. He's 86. When he was 68, he retired. He's a billionaire. He's made more money after coming out of retirement in the last 15 years than he did in the first 68 years. And he's having the time of his life, right? Mm-hmm. But you want to know you don't have to work. So when you get to that peak where you have enough money, now you want to be able to ski down the mountain, enjoy your time with your family, do whatever you want to do, give your time, your energy, your capital, do whatever you want to do. That phase you need income for. And most people aren't planning for income. So you could be in a position where you built your assets up, your stock investments, your bonds, your real estate, and how fast can that drop by 50%, by 30%? We've seen it in every market.
About a nanosecond or
Ray Dalio,
a day? Yeah,
Ray Dalio says point blank, he said, whatever you invest in, most people invest in something they feel is their favorite. They think they know something about it. So he said, you're a real estate guy, you put all your money in real estate. And then you put all your money in stocks, or you put it into commodities or whatever. He said, whatever investment you invest in, he said, mark my words, in your lifetime, there will be a day that category will go down 50 to 70%. He said, so the only way you protect against that is asset allocation, spreading out against many different baskets, not one. And the other way is you create an insurance policy that says, I'm guaranteed a certain income for life. So what you do is you take a percentage of your earning and you put it in an environment where it grows. And the only problem with that is, I heard annuities, and I was like, annuity to me was the most negative word. It was like,
I know you think about some sleazy insurance sales.
Yeah, exactly right. So you associate to it. Yeah. But here's what an annuity is. Bernanke, as the head of the Fed, his top two investments were both annuities. Because I used to read these ads that say, they still market them. It says, what does it say? It says, I hate annuities and you should too. Yeah. And of course you go to it and it's a guy that's selling you stocks, right? And he says, annuities, they have all these fees, and he's right. There's tons of horrible annuities, just like there's tons of negative mutual funds. There's tons of people who got fees everywhere. They take it every year. And the annuity side, there's a commission paid to a guy. He gets paid once. So I want to be really clear. Annuities aren't a great product. Like mutual funds aren't a great product. The right annuity, the right investment is the right one. And that means you've got to be able to strip out all the crazy fees. You got to know what you're getting. For most people, that's complex. I'll give you a perfect example. A variable annuity, very popular annuity, is filled with fees. It's fees on top of fees. It's fees to be inside of the annuity, and then there's fees for a mutual fund on top of it. It's a disaster. But there are types of annuities, like done properly, like these hybrid annuities, they call them, where it's tied to an index, meaning a stock market index. So here's how it works. You get the upside without the downside. If the stock market goes up, you get a percentage of that growth. If it goes down, you lose nothing. So like you think about my friend who's been out of the stock market for 6 years and he's got nothing to show for it. I said to him, this would have been one of many different vehicles you could have easily done. And what's beautiful about these types of annuities, when it's the right company, you want a company that's got the right rating. You want a company, these insurance companies, the good ones have been around 100 years, 200 years. They've been around since recessions, depressions, the 2008, and nothing's hit them. They're that strong. They've been around. That's all they do. And I said, so with these types of them, there's some that are available. Most of them are available only for people in their 50s and above. So it's thought of as, something for grandpa. I sat down when I started seeing how these work. There's one annuity I saw, and I'm getting old enough that I'm within the range of doing these things now. It just scares me. But one of them gives a guaranteed return of 7% a year. And where are you going to find that? And
my immediate reaction is
that's impossible.
It's like,
It's a company that's, A-rated. It's been around forever. But here's how they do it. You pay into the company, in this particular one, your rate grows at 7% a year, and then you have this lump sum. You don't take out the lump sum. That's how you get the 7% per year. What you do is you take out 5% of it a year. And so they show you what that means to you in income. Because what you really want is income. If you're in the stock market and it drops 50%, your income is just cut in half, and then to grow it back can take decades. So there's some that are tied to the stock market. There's some where annuities that are available today, brand new ones where I saw this one, it blew my mind, where you take the upside of the stock market and they take what's called a spread. So they'll take 1.5% off the top. So if the market goes 10%, you got 8.5%. If it goes 20, you got 18.5%, right? And if it loses money, you lose nothing, and there are no fees if it doesn't make money.
That's a much more attractive proposition.
It's mind-boggling. And then they have a second piece which says, if you leave your money with us and you don't take it out, if you leave it with us, then you can convert that to income in the future. And we can show you how much that would be worth in the future at different stages. So you're able to have something to plan with. So I'm talking about a subject that's really complex. I'm realizing I'm trying to explain this in a few minutes. I haven't tried to do it verbally. I do it in the book really step by step. But take it this way. If you knew today that you could put a certain amount of money aside, and instead of wondering how the stock market was going to go, you knew that meant for you $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, whatever it is, for as long as you live, and that even if all the money you put in, you'd outstripped, you'd still be receiving the money. That's what you get in these types of income insurance plans. And the way they do it is, some people live very long. Today, people Social Security was developed, 1920s, 1930s, right? Under Roosevelt. 65 years old is when you're supposed to get it. Well, the average life expectancy was 62 then.
Yeah.
So it was for the outliers that were being taken care of. And it was to make sure in your older years, 3 or 4 or 5 years of retirement, you'd have some money, be able to live your life, be with your family. Well, today, people living, 85 years. So at 65, they've got 20 years of retirement and they have no plan. And that's the average person, right? If you're married, one of the 2 people in your marriage, there's an 80% chance they'll live to 92 years old. So we're living longer and longer, and technology is just being started to really be brought to it. And yet we work for 30 or 40 years, and then we're supposed to have enough money for 30 years or 20 years. Most people don't have it. So these types of programs that I explain in here step by step, these programs can give you the income for life so you don't have to ever run out of money. When I was with a gentleman by the name of Jack Bogle who started Vanguard, and Vanguard is, the largest mutual fund in the world, but it's an index fund. So they charge very, very small fees, 20 basis points. That means 0.20 when you use basis points, by the way. There's a lot of jargon in this industry. I said to him, I know you believe in investing in the market. I said, but there's a dirty little secret. And the little secret is called sequence of returns. That if you work and you build your whole life up to get this nest egg, and now it's large enough that you can invest in a secure environment and have income coming back to you. It's like your money machine. You don't have to work. But then the market takes a hit. Then it can make a huge difference in where your income is. I said, versus if you have a contract with an insurance company that guarantees you that income, and the company's been around 100 and whatever years, or you diversify amongst multiple insurance companies. I said, those have been proven over hundreds of years to be successful. He said, that's true. I said, the whole dirty secret is, if I'm investing well in the first 3 or 4 years of my retirement, the stock market's up, I might have millions of dollars over the course of my life. If in those first few years it's a 2000 or a 2008 and the market drops 50%, I can show you statistically, you never get back to where you need to be based on your age. So having a balance of assets and having some of these, insurance policies where I know what my income is going to be is the 5th step. It's really making sure that you put the balance in. In a different stage of life, you're going to be focusing on this more. I actually went to Guggenheim, one of the largest financial organizations in the world. I said, I'm wealthy enough at this stage of my life, I'm fortunate enough, and I'm old enough that I can go get these policies. I said, why wouldn't you do this for somebody that's 25 or 35 or 40? Where instead of wondering where the market's going to be and hoping I win, every dollar I put in, the day I put it in, I know what that's worth for me for the rest of my life. I said, why don't you do that? And they said, well, Tony, it's, the part of the problem is we do this based on risk. We know how many people out of a percentage of people when you're 50 plus are going to live longer and how many are not. And that lets us figure out the math. The people who died, that money is available for everybody else and for us to make a profit. That's hard to do when somebody's 25 or 35. I said, I know it's hard to do. So maybe you would give less of a return. Or maybe you tie it to an index where you only pay as the stock market goes up, but they don't lose money when it goes down. I'm sure there's a way around it. So what other challenges? He goes, well, when you buy a mutual fund, you pay 3% every year. When you buy, an annuity contract, we pay, the insurance company pays. You don't pay anything. And we pay 7%, for example. And we do that up front. So we got to make sure that if we're going to make this kind of investment, that someone's going to stay with it over a period of time. And, just that's hard too. I said, what if you eliminated the salesperson? I mean, years ago, you had to buy life insurance from a life insurance salesman. Today, you can go online and buy term insurance. You say, I want this much. It costs this much. It's a commodity. It's cheap. It's cheaper than it's ever been. Why wouldn't you do that? It's like, wow, I never thought about that. We'd have to have people know about it. I said, I'll educate them on my book. I'm sure other people will. People on the internet, when they start seeing something that this is available. So we went through about 9 months of discussions back and forth. And now there are several firms that are building these for someone who can go when you're in your 20s or 30s. And you can say, instead of my 401k where I'm just taking the money and putting in some money market or some mutual fund, hoping where it's going to be, I can put it into this environment. As the stock market goes up, I go up. If it goes down, I don't lose anything. And I can know based on history, on average, what that's worth to me in income in the future at various stages. And at some point, you can turn it on and lock in that number. You can say, I want that number forever. And once you do it, that becomes your number for as long as you live. So the 5th key is really setting yourself up so you have enough income to have the life you want without ever having to think about it as long as you live. Not have to wonder about stock markets going up and down or bonds going up and down or real estate going up and down or commodities or anything else.
It sounds like just a matter of making the correct decision one time. on what type of annuity product to invest in and being educated in it. And then there's really no additional work for you other than to make sure you fund it.
And I do that. I give you 2 chapters and walk you through what to look for, what to look out for. And then I refer you to people that can actually look at it for you and analyze it for you, and go to anybody else and you know what questions to ask them. Because if you do it right, it's extraordinary. There are some products for somebody, for example, I'm now 54 years old. I can go out and make an investment in an annuity right now, and I can make an investment in one that's going to be available for me later in life. Like, for example, I got plenty of money to last me 20, 30 years. Let's say I'm trying to figure that out. What about later in life? I can put $100,000 aside right now that becomes available to me, for example, when I'm 80, which sounds like a long way from now, but it's worth for me, to give you the idea, $75,000 per year for as long as I live.
Seriously?
Seriously. And I first found out about this actually in the New York Times. I didn't even know it existed. I started digging under it and started going to these agencies. So for $100,000 one-time investment, for the future, $75,000 a year. If I live 10 years longer, 12 years longer, the return investment is amazing. But most people don't think in that distance. And the problem, of course, is most people are trying to do their financial planning, trying to figure out how much money they need, but you don't know how long you're going to live. So it's like, how long will it last? You either don't spend very much and you live poorly and you live a long time, or you spend too much and you have no money. With income insurance, I can say, okay, I'm going to plan for 15 years of my life from 65 to 80. And then from 80 on, I have this income for as long as I live. For as long as I live, I don't have to worry about it. That's what it is. So there's some really amazing tools that are available. But you just, people need to be guided to it and become aware of it. That's part of what this book's about.
Seriously? $75,000 a year forever. If you live to be, you probably will live to be like 150 years old or something. With all of the potions that Sage gives you every day, with unbelievable amounts of vitamins and things. I feel healthier just being by you.
I'll tell you what, though, really, truthfully, life expectancy is going to expand massively because you have a situation where the same way we've took music and movies and digitized it, so now it's everywhere, they're digitizing the experience of human cell tissue. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Ray Kurzweil is one of my friends. I write about him in the book. I mean, right now, if you were burned in the old days, 5 years ago, and if you go to most hospitals still, if you get your whole body burned, they put cadaver skin on you. You look horrible. You're for life. You got scars. Now they have this spray gun. They take your own stem cells and they spray them on you. I have a video link in the book showing a real guy, fireman, this happened to. And 3 days later, he looks like he's never been burned in his entire life. That's the kind of stuff that's coming out. There's a guy named Dr. Atala who's been taking when people have kidney cancer and things like that, and he literally takes your stem cells and he prints outside the body with a 3D printer. He prints an actual kidney that is the same stem cells as your own, puts it in that you have a brand new kidney. It doesn't get rejected because it's based on your own stem cells. So there are things that are coming that are going to make us live longer. That's the biggest thing. You want to make sure that money isn't an issue for you to have the quality of life that you want. And if you just do some small things, you can really be financially secure. And if you really apply what we're talking about, you can truly be wealthy over time without ever making a ton of money. There's a gentleman who's worked for UPS. His name's Theodore Johnson. It's mind-boggling. Never made more than $14,000 in his entire life. That's the most he made per annum. And at 70 years old, he had $70 million. And all he did was compound his money in the market. That's it. He gave away $35 million, by the way, while he was still alive.
$70 million.
$70 million. That's the power of compounding. That's the power of taking a little bit, putting it aside, not putting yourself where fees are eating you up.
Not do stupid things.
Know what your goals are, the right asset allocation, right? And guess what? It's not hard to have a nice income for life off of $70 million. You can do okay with that.
As we've gone through these first 5, I'm still looking for something. I'm looking for a catch. I'm like, well, surely something has to be very difficult. So far, there hasn't been one.
Yeah, the catch is that most people are ignorant.
Clearly.
No, they don't need to be disciplined because you automate the first portion of it. So it's like what it really is, truly is, it's the belief system that you talked about at the beginning, that it's so complex, it's so difficult, and it's not hard to believe that when everybody around you tries to make it complex. And it's also not having role models that do it. I mean, you wouldn't go to somebody who's overweight and say, show me how to get fit. You don't go to somebody who's broke or somebody who's just selling you on something and saying, how do I turn this around? I went to the best on earth. I call them the unicorns because there's only a few people on earth that really beat the market over 10, 20, 30, 40 years. The Ray Dalios, all these guys that I've walked through here. And I've just got them to show me what to do. And then what I'm good at is taking complex things and making them simple. As you know, that's why I've reached millions of people and put it in these like little 7 steps. And I even built an app for people. So you can forget and it'll remind you, okay, you got step 1 done. Now here's what step 2 is. And it literally will come up and give you those text reminders to keep you on target.
What about the remaining 2 steps?
Real fast. Step number 6, when you've done this, you're on the way. So now it's just like if you want to turbocharge this, invest like the 0.001%. So what I did is, out of the 50 plus interviews, I think I ended up doing 56 interviews in total, Nobel Prize winners, self-made billionaires, hedge fund guys, my average interview was like 3 hours plus. I took and did 12 of the best, the top dozen, and I took a small portion of it, like 10, 12 pages of just their best insights. So you're able to read in that book, literally, you can go say, okay, what would Carl Icahn do in this situation? And I show you how you can invest with Carl Icahn. By the way, he's one of the few hedge fund guys that you can invest with no fees. He's put up a unique structure where people can do it. And his returns have outstripped Warren Buffett for the last 1, 5, and 10 years, destroyed the market. In the book, I show you his returns. Most people don't realize. Time magazine called him Master of the Universe. So he's my number one. And then I go through Ray Dalio, and then I go through Paul Tudor Jones. And so you literally have a chance to read and say, here's how the 1%, 0.001% invest. Well, which of these things might I want to do? And then the final step is just do it and enjoy it and share it. And I walk through, most people are unsure about the future. And so I do a chapter on these things I'm talking to you about. There's a natural investment that's happening for you if you're doing nothing. And it's technology is getting stronger and stronger. It's getting cheaper and cheaper every year. You look at our lives today, you pull out your iPhone today, and it's like this baby. I remember I was with President Clinton, and it's the first time I coached him, and I said to him, I said, we could communicate electronically, like when we're on different time zones and so forth. And, I said, I got this thing called email on this AOL account. I'll never forget this.
It's amazing.
And I said, it's amazing. I said, he goes, I've heard about that. The President of the United States, when he was President Clinton, did not have an email account his first year in office. So it's like now, a Maasai warrior, in Africa has more computing power here. I mean, he's got video conferencing anywhere in the world. He's got access to markets. He can study at MIT or Stanford or Harvard. I mean, he can access all the great books in the world. He can find any conversation from crazy guys like you and I, and it's all in his hand. So
amazing.
10 years ago, we had 500 million people on the web. We got 2 billion today. In the next 6 years, we're going to have 6 billion. So even if they're off by 1 billion, we're going to more than double the number of people that have access who are going to compete together. They're going to create ideas together. They're going to create funny-ass videos together that are going to create new products and services together. The mind power of the earth is all working to make the quality of your life better because they're all competing. So scientists, doctors, people all over the earth. So I go through and show you the 3 or 4 biggest breakthroughs that are happening so that most people do not think the future is going to be better economically. And what you're going to find is, think about it. This would have cost $3 million for one of these to be made just 15 years ago. Absolutely. I'm old enough to remember the first cell phone that was a little brick that Motorola made. That was
do you remember that? TED Talk. I remember that. I think it was a TED Talk where the guy showed on the TED Talk the table-sized thing where you could manipulate images and
I was there at that TED Talk.
Unbelievable. And then like a year later, that comes out.
Steve Jobs was there. I was at that TED Talk, and everybody was like, whoa, it was this giant table.
Huge.
And Microsoft came in and bought the rights to the table, and Steve Jobs came and figured out how to use that on the phone, and nobody knew he'd done it until he ran it. It changed all of our lives, right?
Absolutely.
So just think about it. Movies, music, information, education, it's all available for next to nothing or free for pennies. And it's only going to get better and better in those areas. That is not to say there aren't going to be problems. People are going to abuse technology. There's new problems that we have all over the earth. But I'm unabashedly show you how the technology can make a difference. And it's not my view. I take you to the best futurists, the best inventors in the world. And then the last chapters are really just showing you how to make sure you follow through. I got a checklist. So you say, okay, Tony, you threw a lot at me here. I got the 7 steps. I got my app that'll remind me. But if I wanted my own little checklist to make sure I haven't missed anything, and that checklist is available for you for action. And the very final chapter is really, I talk about the secret to living is giving. Sounds overly simplistic. But like when people say money doesn't matter, they don't know where to shop. And what I mean is they don't know what to shop for and who to shop for. Mm-hmm. Because all the research shows something interesting. If you make twice as much money, you're making $25,000 a year and you make 50, people think it'll double their level of enjoyment of life or happiness. And on average, it improves 9%, which is mind-boggling. There's the initial excitement, and it's 9% better statistically. Lots of studies have shown once you make $75,000 a year, making more money you like, but it doesn't truly change your happiness in a sustainable way once you make basically a middle-class salary. People make more, might argue about that with them, but that's what the studies show. But what the studies now show is how you spend money. $5 a day spent right will bring you more joy than $10,000 spent poorly. And what does that mean? I give you dozens of them. I'll give you 3. Number 1, if you spend money on things, you limit your level of happiness. If you spend the money on experiences, it creates a generative effect in your body emotionally. And they can measure the level of fulfillment and happiness you have just by the purchases you make. And they've done it scientifically all the way down to how it changes your biochemistry, down to the changes in your saliva and the hormones. That's where the research comes. It's not somebody airy-fairy saying, well, if you have experiences, it'll be better. Second one, when you spend money on things that give you time and take away drudgery, if you can get somebody else that you pay and they're employed and they now scrub the floor or they clean the toilet and they have an income and they're happy and you're freed up to do something you're more passionate about in business or life, the level of happiness grows geometric. But the one that creates the greatest happiness is the one that sounds trite, but it's biochemically accurate. And that is investing in others, which simply means giving your money away.
Really?
And it's mind-boggling. And they show you time out. They show you with little numbers, like, buying a cup of coffee for a stranger and what it does and how long the happiness does versus you buy the coffee for yourself versus you buy it for a friend. And I've got the studies in here. It's fascinating. But what I can tell you from my own life experience, like, the people that I know that are the happiest on earth are not the people with the most money. I got a lot of clients, as you well know, that are billionaire clients, and a lot of them come to me because they want me to do something with their business. But invariably, I'll see there's something going on with them too that makes them unhappy. It doesn't matter how much money they have. There's people with $1 billion and they still live in scarcity. It doesn't matter how much money they have, right? By the way, I asked that question of everyone I interviewed. I said, does financial pressure ever go away? 85% said no. And the average.
You can imagine how much it would increase proportionally.
Well, for a few it didn't, but for most of them it did. They felt more responsibility. They had more got to manage, more they got to do. So if you think financial pressure is going to go away just by having money, they just learn to handle it differently. They have a totally different experience. But I'm juiced about people seeing how they can use the money that makes joy happen. Like, I love to do things where it's a total surprise. I remember when I had very little money, I was just getting started. I grew up in a very tough environment, and my mom always loved the ocean, and we lived in the San Gabriel Valley of LA where they had smog alerts and you couldn't go outside for a couple of days. It was horrible. And I called my mom up and I said, this was early in my career, and I said, come meet me in Huntington Beach. There's a condo I'm considering getting on the beach. I'm considering living on the beach, Mom, but I want your feedback, what you think. So she drives down to meet me. I'll never forget, I just looked around, she goes, oh my God, smell the air, it's so fresh, and this is the dream, to live on the beach, and my son's gonna live on the beach, and I show her the condo, and she's like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I said, you sure, do you really think we were there? She goes, I don't care what it costs. She said, if you can get in, you get this. And I said, you feel that strong? And she said, yeah. And then I said, it's yours, and I handed the keys.
What a day.
And it was like, my mom's passed away a long time ago, but it was one of those days that to this day, I can remember the feeling and the experience of like, holy shit. You don't get that by buying something for yourself.
Yeah.
You don't get that by, earning a bunch of money. It's beautiful to have those choices. We were saving up for an RV and we were invited to Las Vegas. We had this trip and we came around the corner and there's this ultra unbelievable double-sided, and I said, wow, look at that. He said, oh my God, that's the most incredible. We can never have anything like that. And I said, well, let's look inside. The door's open. He said, oh, we can't go in there. I said, well, let's stick our head in, Took him in, right? And I said, oh, we can't. I said, come on. I sat down there. Get out of there. Get out of there. It's yours. Those are the days that, that's what mastering money's about.
Yeah.
You either master it or it masters you, baby.
Yeah.
And if you master it, you can learn, grow, and you can give. And, money isn't everything because you can have a lot of money and still be a selfish bastard. I mean, money just makes you more of what you are. If you're really selfish, you got more to be selfish with. If you're really giving, you can have more that you can give with. And so I feel privileged at this stage in my life to have found a way to do what I love, which is to light people up and bring them breakthroughs and bring them answers in their body, their emotions, their relationships, all these areas, but also in their financial area as well. And when you're able to do it in all those areas, life's pretty cool. If you just do it in the money area, it's not enough. I mean, richest man in the graveyard is not going to do any good. And so this book is really about how to have that real wealth. And I just finished to tell you that I end the book sharing a story that I'll share with you because you know me well enough to know what this is like. And I know you can relate in some ways. Because I know your background in your hot suit going out there with your credit card machines down in, was it Macon, Georgia?
Macon, Georgia.
Macon, Georgia, baby.
It's still hot down there.
It is still hot down there, and you're not.
I think I'm still unwelcome to go try to sell credit card machines down there. They'd still rather me not show up.
Probably that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But we have a similar background. We started with nothing, and I can remember I know the day I became wealthy, because I was thinking towards the end of the book, what was the day that I became a wealthy man? And I was broke. I was living in Venice, not Venice, Italy, Venice, LA, in this 400 square foot bachelor apartment. I was feeling sorry for myself. I was mad at the world. I was mad at a friend of mine that I loaned, $1,000 to, and he didn't pay me back, and he wouldn't return my phone calls because I was broke. I mean, I was down to, I don't know, 23, 24 bucks, something like that, some change. No prospects. I'm like, how am I going to eat? How am I going to survive? I'm going to pay my rent. I was already behind my rent by 30 days. And when I was 17, my mom kicked my dad out. He went back east and kicked me out. And I survived by scratching up enough money each day and then going to the smorgasbord and like loading up for the winter, just eating all I could to make it last a day or two. And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I walked because I didn't want to take my car and the gas or pay for parking. Didn't have that kind of money. And I walked 3-4 miles from Venice to this place in Marina del Rey. It's still there. And it's called El Torito. It's this little Mexican restaurant that's on the water where all the, the amazing yachts are. And I thought, I'm going to go there and I'm going to absorb this abundance environment because I'm so scarce. And I'm going to eat all I can possibly eat, for $5.95 of this tacos and salad.
Incredibly healthy, energizing.
Of course,
food.
totally energizing. Like something I can go have a good sleep afterwards and forget all this, right? And I went in, I loaded up for winter, and I ate all the stuff. And I'm looking out there, and it was a beautiful day, and it was gorgeous. And so I got up to go pay, and as I got to go pay, in the front door walks this little boy, probably 8 years old, and 7, 8 years old. And he was dressed in a suit, and he's just like, kind of demure like you right now.
If anything, I am certainly demure, as you well know.
That's I well know. But sincerely, he was just really, I don't know, there was something about this kid. He had this air about him, and he opened the door for his mother, and he pulled the chair out for her. And I don't know, something about it just struck me emotionally very deeply. And I was just touched, thinking, this little boy has got so much heart and class. And so I walked up to him. I paid my bill and walked up to him, and I said hi, and I introduced myself, and I was nobody. Who the hell's Tony Robbins? No Tony Robbins. And he says,
who is this gigantic?
Yeah, that's what he's really thinking is not there. And I said, I just want to tell you, I watched you for the last few minutes. I said, I watched you open the door for you later. I saw you pull out the chair. I saw the way you looking in her eyes and giving her full attention. I said, you are a class act. And he looked at me and I said, and taking her lunch, that's awesome. He goes, well, she's my mom. And I said, that's even more cool. And they said, well, I'm not taking a lunch because I don't have a job yet. I'm 8, and I said, and I looked at him, I said, yes, you are. And I didn't have any plan. I just reached in my pocket, took all the money I had in the world. It was like $19 and some change, whatever was left after that. And I just slapped down in front of him in front of the table. And he looked up at me, his eyes got big as garbage can covers. He goes, what's that? And he smiled. And I said, that's yours. He goes, I can't take that. And I said, yes, you can. He said, how come? I said, because I'm bigger than you are. And then I didn't say another word.
Every time.
I didn't say another word. I just turned. I didn't even look at his mom. I wasn't doing it for attention. And I walked out that door. And I didn't walk out that door. I flew out of that door, man. I had no car. I'm walking home, I just felt like so alive. I felt so free. And I should have been scared shitless. I got no money. I don't know where I'm going to feed myself. You gave away last minute. There wasn't an ounce of fear in me. It was like in that moment, scarcity died. It just died. It was out of my life. And I went home that night and I have no clue what I was going to do, but I was like excited and inspired and I started writing out this plan and I thought, well, people fast all the time. I can fast for 4 or 5 days. It's probably good for me.
Meal.
I can eat it after that meal. And I got this little plan in my head and I'm going to work it out. And I woke up the next morning and I had no fear in me and I'm going to go work my plan and the old snail mail arrived. And there I get this old envelope in the old days, right? Tear the thing open and it's a check from the guy who wouldn't even return my phone call for more than $1,000, either some interest in, and, $1,200 in those days would cover my butt for 2 weeks to a month, right? It was like, and I started to cry. And I'll never forget, I was thinking to myself, what does this mean? And I decided that meant that I was being rewarded for doing what's right, by not operating out of scarcity and fear, it was spontaneous. It was authentic. It felt right. And I did what felt right. And I was rewarded. And I believed in my mind. I still believe to this day. It may not be true, but that was grace. And, so from that day forward, it was just like, Just do more, give more, share more, create more. And what you need will be there. It's like air. You don't stop to think about when you take a breath whether it'll be there or not. It's always going to be there.
Yeah.
You just got to do your part. So I'm emotional about it because even though it's been decades and decades since that day.
Well, look what the guiding principle has created.
And that's why I say I look at my life today and the millions of people I've had a chance to serve and be a part of and who my friends are and the life I get to live my life with today. It's just the rewards, the karma, if you would, corny as it may sound. And so, for me today, just recently, I was thinking about it. It's probably why I'm so emotional. I was thinking about where this journey began for me, my desire to serve. Every day before I get on stage, I do this thing to whip myself into a peak state, and then my last words are, use me, Lord. That's my prayer. And every day my goal is to be a blessing in people's lives. And I've written a book that when I was done, I'm probably feeling that too. It's a 4-year journey. It's the best of what I found on the face of the earth. And I know anybody picks it up who's sincere and just even applies a small portion of it, their life will be altered, and it'll be altered for the better. And that karma continues. And I also know part of this is, up front. I'm not waiting for a book to sell. I didn't do some feeding promotion. I wrote a check for 55 million people to be fed, which, since I couldn't even feed myself back then, feels pretty unbelievable. And I know I've done my part. I also know grace has been a part of that. And for that, I'm grateful.
Well, we're all grateful for you. Speaking of that.
Yes.
A lot of people are going to see this.
Yes.
And if you remember the one that we did last time.
Yes.
I got letters from it. You got letters from it. And there would be that one person. They say, I watched the video when I was in this condition, and then you said that one thing.
Yeah.
And then I applied it.
Yeah.
And things turned around for me. And I'm wondering if you could think about who that person is and tell them that one thing right now, what would it be?
It's a great question. There's so much to pull from. But at my core, my mom wanted me to be a truck driver because that would mean I would make $24,000 a year if I went to Truck Masters. And that would be twice what my father made. And she thought that would happen. But something inside of me said, I don't want to drive a truck. There's something else that matters more to me. And I decided I was not going to go for money instead of passion. And the rewards have been pretty amazingly better than being a truck driver. It's not bad being a truck driver. It's just not what I was after. And I look back, and one of the things that helped me was my original teacher, Jim Rohn, who was a personal development speaker I went to hear when I was 17. He said something the first time I heard him, and he said, it's really simple. If you want life to change, you got to change. If you want life to be better, you've got to get better. It's the only way it happens. And luck will show up for people and it'll leave them. But if you're constantly improving who you are and what you give, game over. And he also told me something about economics that I never forgot. He said, economics is really simple. The world really is simple. If you will find a way to add more value to other people's lives than anybody else does, then you'll never have to worry about that area of your life. And if you look at it, most of us don't realize you can add a lot of value and be a school teacher and add enormous value. And unfortunately, in our society, you won't get paid well. But as I show in the book, if you add value to more people, instead of 30 children, there's a school teacher in there that makes $2 million a year. And he does it with the web, and he does it by coaching. He's from Japan, and it's quite extraordinary. So if you do want to earn more by adding value, there's a way. You can also add value and make no money. You can also add value and give it away, and you still earn more. It's like the joy that we get from that giving that we talked about. Of all things we talked about, the things that brought me to tears is thinking about how far it's come and all that's come in the life from that day when I did what's right. And the other time I've been in tears is thinking about, what I did for my mom and things of that nature. Those ultimate rewards come from giving. So if you work at McDonald's, there's nothing wrong with it. But the reason you make $7.25 an hour is lots of people can do that. Mm-hmm. If you're David Tepper, last year, he made $3.5 billion. I'm not saying that should be aspirational for you, but it's because he found a way to do something nobody else did last year, which is get a 42% return. Find a way to add more value. If you can figure out what you're most passionate about, find a way to do it in a way that adds more value to more people, then economics will never be a question for you. But more important, you'll be wealthy because you'll know that you're a giver, not a taker in this world. And I think putting ourselves in that position is maybe the greatest gift we can give ourselves and everybody else.
Well, I think you've certainly given a lot with this book. I mean, it's a hell of a thing.
Curls.
4 years.
Yeah, it's 4 years of my life.
And I mean, I've kind of been along for the journey. What's going on? I'm writing this book. I'm on page 7. It has taken me forever to get to page 7. Then a year later, and it's about 100 pages in, 3,000 hours. So, guys, read it. I'm pretty sure it's safe to say that their purchase is not going to really make a significant difference in your life. So
no, I'm not getting any money from it at all, not a penny.
Yeah, we're not in the book selling business.
Not even slightly, no.
In terms of...
But their investment will not only change themselves, but I'm feeding 50, if you sell 1 million copies, which is the average what I've done in the past, then there'll be 50 people fed just by you getting this book. So not only do you benefit, but other people benefit as well, which is a pretty cool thing.
Can't go wrong. Empower yourself, empower other people. Do good things. You will be rewarded. Thanks for doing the interview, man. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great to see you and be with you again.
Yeah.